Welcome back to Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Owen, and today we're going to be going over something fun. I just want to take a break from covering NFL or college football stuff. I know that the national championship's coming up recently, or actually, I don't know when this will be going up, but it should be before the national championship gets played. But if it's not, go TCU. I'm so glad they won. But if it is before, go TCU. I hope they win. But anyway, just to stop stalling, I wanted to talk about the XFL because I finally went through and looked up after they had the supplemental draft, all the rosters and stuff to try to see who I'm going to be rooting for this year because I do not have a local XFL team. I need to pick one of the 8 to decide, okay, I'm going to go through and root for specific players on this team or just because the logo is cool or something, which I haven't looked at the uniforms yet. I don't even know if they've released them, to be honest with you, so I'm going to do that live on the podcast after this part. But I'm going to go through, and I already went through. I made a list of all the players that I knew or liked that I knew and that I liked that are on these teams, and it's going to try to help me narrow down which teams I'm going to root for. So we're going to go through in the order I have them written down here, and I'll tell you how often I've heard of the players they have, or how familiar I am with them, or how if I'm going to be rooting for them or not, or if I'll root for their players specifically about the team. We'll get through it. It's going to be a nice little conversation. So first up, we have the Arlington Renegades, which I do remember from the original XFL. The Renegades, I don't know if they were specifically from Arlington when they were in the original XFL. I didn't look up when all the things that got moved and switched around, but for right now, it's just the Arlington Renegades. And this is going to be a short list. I'm fairly certain I'm not going to be an Arlington Renegades fan just because I feel like they're too associated with Dallas, and I can't stand Dallas. But O-line Garrett McGinn, I know him from being on the Bills practice squad, being in stuff like that. So that's somebody I'm familiar with, and I'm rooting for him because I thought he played pretty well in the preseason and stuff for the Bills. We just had a deeper offensive line roster and to really keep as many offensive linemen as other teams would. So, rooting for him. And then safety Will Hill. I'm pretty sure everyone knows who Will Hill is if you know about how bad the Browns were. The whole kick block return to keep them losing. I think that was the year they went 0-16. But Will Hill for the Ravens, so I'm hoping to see he can do better. And then the only other player is punter Marquette King. I've been a fan of Marquette's for a while, like when he was on the Raiders and things like that. I'm hoping he can make a resurgence back to the NFL, but again, it's a punter. One of the only 3 players I really cared about or knew about for this team was a punter. So I think it's safe to say that Arlington is going to be out of the rooting competition for my eyeballs. And the same can be said for the DC Defenders, which is unfortunate because I was originally a DC Defenders fan because I was a big fan of Cardale Jones and some of the other guys they had on the roster when they first played. The players I highlighted here were quarterback Derek King, which I am a Derek King fan. I didn't think he was an NFL quarterback, but I like, he's enjoyable to watch play. He's a fun player. And then Abram Smith, I'm fine with. People were talking him up as a really good running back prospect in last year's draft. I was more in the 7th round kind of guy. I was higher on Tristan Ebner than I was on Abram Smith. So hopefully he can come through and just, keep playing football, be entertaining. He's a beast when it comes to power running and stuff like that. So they probably have a good little XFL level running back there. And then cornerback Cortez Davis had some insane interception stats his last year at Hawaii, because I was going through at the end of the year, I was looking at who was the stat leaders, who's going to be in draft eligible, to see who I should be spending my last couple days before the draft, just touching up on in case these guys get drafted. And Cortez Davis was near the top of the interception leaderboard. I believe he had over 10. Let me just fact check that for you guys real quick because I don't want to say this and have it be the wrong Cortez Davis, which I'm pretty sure I already Googled it beforehand when I was making this list, but I just want to make sure. So here are his stats he had when it comes to interceptions. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was not interceptions. It was passes defensed, and it was 18. Not interceptions, my bad. It was 18 passes defensed. So I thought that was a ridiculous number, so I checked him out. Kind of as a 7th round guy, pretty low on my board. So Yeah, those guys, I definitely could see them being average to above average XFL players, but I don't think there's much in the way of NFL talent as of right now. Now I think it's just going to be the leading candidate. I haven't looked at their uniforms yet, but the Houston Roughnecks, I know I just trashed Arlington for being close to Dallas or whatever, but Houston has the Texans, and I feel bad for them, and I like the Houston Texans. And Houston's kind of a rival with Dallas when it comes to this stuff. I know Arlington, but whatever. You know what I mean. Arlington doesn't have enough players. Forget my Dallas comment, I guess. But we'll start out with we have two quarterbacks here. They have Cole McDonald and Caleb Ellaby. Cole McDonald was quarterback for Hawaii, and some of those guys usually get rooted for. And Cole McDonald was a guy, he played for the Titans. Overall, it was just a good story when he was in the preseason. Caleb Ellaby was a guy I actually really liked. I thought he was like a 6th, 7th round quarterback prospect from last year's draft. That could have been, a decent backup in the NFL level. So I think he might be able to come in, and especially if they run a lot of RPO stuff, he'll be able to really roll with it here in the XFL. Especially, I think his biggest issue was his athletically. He wasn't all there, and it was an RPO heavy system at Western Michigan, so he wasn't really getting a lot of pro looks. I think he has good arm strength, good understanding of how to run the RPO system, so hopefully the Roughnecks can really utilize him well if he does win the starting job. Running back Max Borghi was another guy I was kind of a fan of out of the draft last year. 6th round pick for me, grade-wise, from Washington State. I really was kind of hoping the Bills would take him, and he has a good blend of speed, and even though he's not the biggest guy, he does run a little angry. Really good receiving back. I mean, Washington State is always good at passing the ball regardless, so he was incorporated into that a lot. So I think as a good receiving option out of the backfield and as a lead back, I think he has a chance to really make a name for himself and then maybe get his name into the NFL after this year in the XFL. Wide receiver Antonio Nunn, UB alum. That's the only reason why I really know him. I haven't really kept up with what he's been doing professionally. D-tackle Elijah Quells. He was a D-tackle for Washington Huskies when Vita Vea was there and Greg Gaines. So he was in that rotation. He was clearly not as good as those other two who have become pretty good NFL players and have gotten second contracts and stuff like that. But Quells was still good. He was in that era when I first started following the Huskies pretty closely with like John Ross and Jake Browning and that team. Miles Gaskins. So some sentimental value there. And CJ Brewer was another guy, D lineman I was covering out of Colorado. The first year I ever started doing rankings for draft stuff and really getting into the draft and kind of dipping my toes in it. So I'm hoping for CJ Brewer to have some success. He's kind of a tweener, D-tackle, D-end kind of guy. So depending on, maybe Qualls will be the nose tackle and Brewer will be a 3-5 kind of a, 3-4 kind of defensive end. 5 technique was what I was trying to think of. And punter Race Porter, another Washington Huskies guy. Actually didn't know that until I was showing a picture of him. So just threw him on there because go Huskies. So Houston right now is the leader. That is 7 players that I have some sort of rooting interest for on this team. And in a close second with 6 is going to be the Seattle Sea Dragons. Ben DiNucci, I know I should talk to Dallas at least 4 times in this episode already. But he was a good story for them, even though he didn't really win a lot of games. He came in and it was like, who the hell is Ben DiNucci? And I know he was I think he was in the XFL before for a different team. Or maybe it was the USFL or whatever other spring leagues we've had so far. The AAF. It was the AAF. Yes. Oh my God, it's a blast from the past. But the AAF. Ben DiNucci was there. And it was just cool to see an AAF guy get a chance. So I was going to root for him here as well. Chris Owens was a offensive line prospect I had as a 6th, 7th round guy. Played for Alabama. He wasn't the most athletic. I thought his ability to play center, guard, and tackle at Alabama was going to translate to him getting at least a backup role in the NFL because he was going to be a very position versatile. But I feel like maybe the athletics and his work ethic weren't high enough to get it there. So intelligent player, should be able to, for a league where offensive line play is going to be spotty at best, someone who can play all 5 positions is going to be pretty useful. And I guarantee he finds a way onto the starting line for the Seattle Sea Dragons in some way, shape, or form, whether it's tackle, guard, or center. D-line Curtis Weaver and had some time in the NFL for the Browns. I was a fan of him coming out of Boise State. He was more of a power rusher kind of guy, maybe not the most athletic, but definitely was an NFL level backup or a rotational piece, so he should be one of the more successful guys in this league, I think. Same with PJ Hall, who played for the New York Giants from NC State. He had some good. He had a couple like solid years, nothing great. Rotational defensive lineman, bounced around from the Giants to the Raiders, I believe. Unless that was the other guy from NC State that I'm thinking of that was traded from the Giants to the Raiders, but no. Well, maybe he was just drafted. Oh, he played for Raiders and Texans. Who am I thinking? BJ Hill? BJ Hill. Something from the Giants. But PJ Hall, yeah, drafted to the Raiders, played for the Texans. Now he's back in here. I think he can. He was an NFL level guy for a couple seasons. I think he can really stand out. And then Clarence Hicks, who was like a linebacker edge hybrid from UTSA. I really liked him. I thought he was, because he's one of those guys who's super bendy and explosive, that can win against less athletic tackles. So he might be able to do that in the XFL as well. And I'm surprised he didn't get a role in the NFL. It might just be because he was too much of a tweener and no one really had a specific spot or role for him. He wasn't too bulky enough to be a linebacker, but he also wasn't like strong enough on the edge or setting the run defense, stuff like that, to really be an edge presence. So he was kind of too much of a tweener to make it. But I feel like this front with Curtis Weaver, PJ Hall, and Clarence Hicks might be probably one of the best in the XFL, if I had to be honest with you, even though we're going to talk about some guys with some notable names coming up. And then finally, cornerback Mikael Wright from Oregon. People were really high on him. Now, I'm going to, in real time, check this, but people were really high on Mikael Wright coming into the draft. Like I remember watching Draft Network had him like as a second-round guy for the majority of the year. I can't remember where I ended up having him. I know I didn't like him as much as other people did, because I know that there was a lot of talk about him. But Mikael Wright, I had as a fourth-round guy. I had him go up a little bit. I saw a couple more good games from him. I'm checking here on the Dynasty Index from where my write-ups are. I wrote his final write-up on December 30th, 2021. I didn't like his run defending. His man coverage was iffy. I liked his zone coverage, though. Ball skills, versatility, all kind of lower graded. He was a decent athlete, some good length. So I feel like maybe he just didn't make it onto a NFL roster due to maybe his lack of like super elite athleticism and good man intangibles. Probably kept him off a roster, and he's just going to come here and try to prove himself. But I feel like this defense for the Seattle Sea Dragons might be the best here, because like I'm looking at everything else, I'm pretty sure like these guys are all pretty good players, especially if you're going to ask them to play at an XFL level, where it's slightly higher than college, where all these guys did pretty decent at, but not the NFL, where they weren't able to really cut it. So look, make a look out for the Seattle Sea Dragons defense there. The Las Vegas Vipers, I have 5 players here. Quarterback Luis Perez, have been a fan of his since the AAF with the Birmingham Iron, but everyone's pretty familiar with his story. I don't want to delve too deep into that. They were just recently assigned Brian Scott, who was, I believe he was the USFL MVP from last season, and he was on the Philadelphia Star thing. It was just Stars? I don't know what the name of it was. I was only really half into the USFL last year, and oh no, Kevontae Turpin, what? Maybe, I don't know, but I guess not. I guess I'm thinking of something else. But Brian Scott, USFL quarterback, was pretty good during the regular season, and just got signed to them recently. So I'm excited. To see who wins the quarterback competition here. Like, I'm impartial to Luis Perez. He played a little bit on the Rams as a backup, and I think he has done good in all the other spring leagues he's played in. I hope he can win out, but if not, Brian Scott's going to be another interesting name to keep an eye on, just after having some success with the USFL. Now he's going to be for their direct competitor. Should be fun. This is the Vegas Vipers really exemplify Las Vegas. I'll get to the why in a second with the last 2 players, but I'll skip one guy and go to O-line Donovan West. He was a center from Arizona State. I actually was pretty high on him. I thought he was going to be pretty good. I think I had a 3rd round draft grade on him last year. Comped him to like a low tier, like knockoff style Mitch Morse. Yeah, I had him as a 3rd round pick. I'm surprised he didn't make it. I don't know what happened with him. I didn't keep up with him as it comes to like training camp conversations and stuff, but hopefully, I think he'll be pretty good when it comes to when you're looking at O-linemen who stood out in the XFL. He has a great chance to be one of the best, if not the best, offensive lineman out there. I was, again, pretty high on him before the season or in the draft process. And then, okay, so this is why I was saying the Vegas Vipers are very much Las Vegas to their core, is the additions of wide receiver Martavis Bryant and linebacker Vic Beasley Jr., two guys who are out of the NFL now for different reasons. Bryant, obviously, for substance abuse, which wouldn't be really considered a suspendable offense at this point, just because marijuana isn't really as punished anymore. Excuse me. And then Vic Beasley Jr., I think he had like a couple good seasons, not decent seasons with the Falcons, but other than that, he really fell off, kind of a falling out with the team itself. So now he's out of the league entirely, and I mean, kind of one of our more notable draft busts. So some big names for Vegas. I don't think I'm going to be particularly high on them. Still between the Roughnecks and the Sea Dragons for me. The San Antonio Brahmas quarterback Jack Cohn was in the kind of the Caleb Elby bucket, where I thought after his season transferring from Wisconsin to Notre Dame that he would be able to really, put together something and maybe be an NFL level backup or at least a practice squad fodder. But he might be able to come out here. He wasn't the most statistically good guy at Notre Dame or Wisconsin, to be fair and honest with you. It's kind of like how they're doing with Grant Mertz right now. And I think I don't have much expectation for Cohn, but it's just a name I recognize and did draft evaluation on. So maybe he'll be able to add more of a running dynamic to a quarterback position for the Brahmas here. Which, by the way, side tangent. I love the name the Brahmas because you could just call them like the Bulls or the whatever Steers or something like that. But not the Dwayne the Rock Johnson, the Brahma Bull. So call them the San Antonio Brahmas. That's pretty cool. Running back Kalen Ballage is somebody I was really a fan of when I first started doing draft stuff. If you watched my episode from last week where I talked about guys I was fans of when it came to first getting to draft years and going year by year, Kalen Ballage was a guy I kind of liked just because, that was when I was still highlight watching for my evaluations, quote unquote. So I have a kind of a soft spot for Ballage. Defensive back Kari Vincent Jr., I thought he was all right for LSU. I didn't think he was anything special, kind of like a safety cornerback, nickel cornerback tweener dude who just wasn't really that physical, or probably, the nickel corners nowadays need to be really good based on how much the offenses are doing out of the slot. So I'm assuming he just couldn't cut it, and they didn't really like him at the safety position, but maybe he can come out and be one of those more standout DBs, along with Michael Wright, to really, make a name for himself and just show his versatility and playmaking ability that maybe he didn't show a lot. He didn't show it a lot at LSU, to be honest with you, and then maybe didn't show a lot to the teams that took a look at him in the NFL. And punter Brad Wing, another punter. Brad Wing, just another guy I recognize from the NFL. Moving on to the Orlando Guardians, four players here. DeAndre Francois, quarterback from Florida State. I didn't do a write-up on him, but I know he got hype early on in his career at Florida State, and it kind of fell off pretty hard. I think there's some untapped talent there, but at the same time, it's kind of a bag of magical beans. Wide receiver Charleston Rambo, I did do a write-up on, and I had him low, like a 6th-round pick. But I thought he's pretty explosive and a good slot option. If you're a team that needs to get more run after the catch opportunities, you can just scheme him up, and he's a really good guy when it comes to field vision with the ball in his hands. He's not the best route runner. He's not going to do the best tracking the ball with hands down the field and stuff, but you can get him on some design screens and maybe even do the Kevontae Turpin style role. You might be able to get a similar player with Charleston Rambo in the XFL as you did with Kevontae Turpin in the USFL. So keep an eye on him. Nick Coe, originally from Auburn, transferred to, I don't even remember, Wake Forest, I think. Yeah, I think it was Wake Forest. Kind of fell off. Was there with Derek Brown at Auburn, and it was kind of like, oh, who's this guy next to Derek Brown who's doing pretty decent? And then he kind of fell off. Maybe it was because of Derek Brown leaving and have him being the main focus. So Nick Coe maybe seeing some resurgence to see if he can be that focal point guy, not needing a more elite player on the inside to take away the pressure. But we'll see. Just another name I recognized. Another name I recognized from my years of following the draft by just finding the guys who were the tallest and the heaviest for their position group was Josh Harvey Clemens. He was a safety for Louisville at 6'4", and I was like, that's unusual. Watched his highlights. He was pretty fluent mover. I was like, oh, that's cool. Some guy who can really move, height, weight, speed dude. He transitioned to linebacker at the NFL, and now he's listed as a linebacker in some sources, as a safety in other sources. So we'll see what he plays in the XFL. I think he's going to be more like that Hamilton from Notre Dame. Wow, I can't remember his name right now, and I'm super hard blanking. That is not good. Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. Try to give him the Kyle Hamilton role that the Ravens are using right now. So maybe that'll be his thing, but I just remember him from my early days of looking up who draft guys or prospects were before the draft. And then the final team, which holds a special place in my heart. And I think even though I only have 3 players on this list, I think it's going to be up there when it comes to which team I'm going to root for. It's in between this team, the Sea Dragons, and the Roughnecks. It's going to be the St. Louis Battlehawks. And there's only 3 players on here. But one of them is A.J. McCarron, former Alabama quarterback, Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, and Buffalo Bills quarterback. He was decent, I guess, but obviously he's out of the NFL now. I think of the quarterbacks on this list, he's the best. Maybe Derek King or Caleb Elby could do better, but I think I'm safe in saying that he'll probably be the best of this list. Having played in the NFL and Alabama, some high-level competition, he was in the NFL for much longer than a lot of these guys were who are playing quarterback. Then there's wide receiver Austin Proehl, another former Bill, kind of more of a slot guy, played at NC, just North Carolina, not NC State. Played at North Carolina, was the son of, what's his name? Yeah, he's the son of Proehl, whatever his dad's name was, who's a pretty good wide receiver in the NFL. And then this is why. This was the supplemental draft. Wide receiver Hakeem Butler, listed at wide receiver, not tight end. And if you saw my last week episode, you know how much I was infatuated with Hakeem Butler in the 2019 draft. And with A.J. McCarron throwing the ball against some substandard DB competition, he might be able to show out. I don't think he's an NFL player anymore, but man, if we can just get the highlights we got in college now with him at XFL level, I'll just be happy, man. So I think I'm gonna announce that I'm not a St. Louis Battlehawks fan, but I'm excited to watch them. They'll be a team I watch every week if it doesn't interfere with the actual team I want to watch. And if it does, I'll just watch the highlights, because if that's all that matters to me, that's all that matters to me. So it's between the Seattle Sea Dragons and the Houston Roughnecks. To finish this episode up, let's look at their jerseys if they're announced yet. Let's see. XFL jerseys. I want to see if I'm going to like... I know the color schemes are, because we've seen the color schemes so far. Here are the jerseys. So we have the Houston Roughnecks is going to be the red and blue one. The red and blue ones. Those are pretty good. I'm not the biggest fan of the white around the shoulders, but like they're not terrible. I'll give them that. They're not the worst. Oh, that was the. Is this the jersey for 2023? I'm getting conflicting messaging here. Is this for 2023? XFL 2023 uniforms revealed. Let's go here. Let's just look at ESPN. Can't prove me wrong. Let's see. Let's go down to Houston Roughnecks. Oh, and they have Wade Phillips as coach. Yes, okay. So they do have that. I like the gradient fade. I'm gonna say I do like the gradient fade in the numbers. I'm one of those people who do like that. I like the color scheme itself. Those are actually pretty nice. I'm not the biggest fan of the white, but it looks pretty nice. And then what's the other team? The Seattle Sea Dragons. Ooh. I mean, I like the teal, and the orange is just a little meh. Just taking a look at the other jerseys real quick. To be honest, my favorite jerseys of the bunch is probably the Vipers. Black and red is a very solid color combo. St. Louis isn't bad either. The Orlando, what is their name now? The Orlando Guardians and the San Antonio Brahmas. Their jerseys look cool, but they don't look very professional. Like they look like jerseys for like a flag football team. Maybe the Guardians a little more than the Brahmas, but I think it's safe to say the Roughnecks have my favorite jerseys between the Sea Dragons and them. I actually like the gradient a lot, and the white's growing on me a little bit to see them in action, but I think I'm going to stick my flag in the ground right now. I am a Houston Roughnecks fan. Maybe they could swing a trade. Maybe trade one of their quarterbacks, either Cole McDonald or Caleb Elby, to the St. Louis Battlehawks in case of AJ McCarron injury to get Hakeem Butler. But yeah, I think that'd be the only thing that really make this much better is if Hakeem Butler was on the Houston Roughnecks. Outside of that, I'm really excited to see Houston Roughnecks play. I am a Houston Roughnecks fan, even though I think the Seattle Sea Dragons defense will be superior just because of what I can see from right now, preliminary look at their talent there. But yeah, that's where I'm going to plant my flag in the ground. I'll probably keep updating and make some videos about the XFL as it comes out and plays. But for now, that's it for this episode of the podcast. Check out the last week's where I just go through memory lane and talk about all the different NFL prospects that I was kind of a fan of for each year, who my favorite one is each year. And other than that, keep an eye out for more prospect profiles in the 2023 NFL draft. And I might be make some more videos about the XFL or just the NFL playoffs in general. So keep an eye out. Subscribe to the Weekly YouTube channel. And you can find this podcast on any of your streaming platforms if you ever want to check out other episodes. So other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one.